Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about the TSM LCS team. I am Robert Haynes. I'll be your host, your guide into the world of TSM. We got a boogie today because there is quite a bit to go through. So with that, we're just going to jump right in. No draft buff update other than the fact that I sadly lost last week. And I'm pretty sure that Mellory is coming directly for me. I'm scared that I'm going to drop to 2-2. So, yeah. I think that they'd all agree there's too much to go over in this episode. Everybody who's in the draft buff, league. So, time to get to it. We're going to do a super brief recap of this weekend's games. I'm sure you all are tired of hearing it, but, we got to go over at least a little bit. I am considering splitting this into two shows, a preview and a review show. Let me know in the comments below if that's something that you'd be interested in. I probably wouldn't make the shows as long, but, yeah, it was just a suggestion that somebody had, and, I'd be very happy to hear from everybody about what their thoughts are. So, anywho, going into the FlyQuest game. This was a weird game. I don't know how else to say it. It just felt weird. TSM had a really good macro game. They had 3 towers down. I believe all 3 outers specifically by 18 minutes. Then they had all 6 outer towers down by about 24 and a half minutes. And yet they still lost. And there's something to be said about the fact that TSM were the better team, clearly, in that game. They just had a worse comp. Huni actually played pretty well against Licorice. Spica was kind of non-existent, to be honest. Power of Evil played pretty well, probably one of his better games of the season. Lost did what he could, because, what could he do against a, Attack on Titan style person attacking him like he was a Titan? Sorry, maybe a bad reference if you don't know the show, but, Licorice just flying in on the Camille and making, what can Misfortune do when he's getting dove like that? And I think a lot of people were calling for Lost's head after that game, and to be honest, even when he's surrounded by everybody else in his team, there's nothing he could do. He would get 2-shot. And TSM were just so focused on trying to keep him alive, trying to, make it so it wasn't an instant 4v5, that, FlyQuest just came running in. How do you stop a super speedy horse? You don't. And the thing is Diamond was just roaming around with Jose Dioto almost the entire game, which is why they gave up almost every tower in the game. But when it came down to it, they had a plan, right? It was make sure that Jose Dioto lived and make sure that Licorice deleted somebody. And that was it. Palafox would put the shield on, the speed up Jose Dioto. Jose Dioto would already be going fast with Ghost. Johnson would just either speed up or shield or, CC the entire team of TSM. And if that wasn't enough, then Diamond would just dive in and add even more layers of CC. So, and when you look at TSM's comp, it's like, okay, individually, sure, that's fine. But what are they going to do? Like, what is this team realistically going to do? Huni drops his ult, maybe. Power of Evil gets a nice scatter the weak. They cut off the team and maybe Sword Art knocks some people up and Lost gets his ult off. Oh, wait, Lost couldn't because he died instantly. Because there was not enough peel. Alistar can peel one person, but he can't peel everybody. And Spica was basically non-existent in this game. I will keep saying that until the cows come home. He was missing Q volleys like crazy. I didn't see him really gank once. Sure, again, they had tower advantage, but they just didn't do anything with it, and it didn't matter. And they slowly just lost the game to a point where they couldn't team fight and they couldn't answer with anything. And yeah, I mean, TSM they never had a major gold lead. It was bad. It was a really bad draft. The macro was awesome. It's one of the most insane macros I think I've ever seen. But they couldn't do anything with it, and they gave up Drakes. They had no prio over anything because they just died. The dive was too strong, and I would have loved to have seen an Azir actually in this game. I think Azir would have been a lot better, but I don't know. TSM they just didn't do anything. So you move on to the C9 game. This one will be by far the quickest because there's not a whole lot to really talk about because they just got their butts handed to them. Try to be a little more appropriate today, guys. They got beat at every level. The draft was especially bad here because not only do they pick Camille without banning Jax, right? He takes no flash when they also give up the Udyr for free. And then they're like, oh, yeah, you know what? We're gonna play Talia again because that worked really well yesterday. And then, well, we're going to play Leandri's Corki in the mid lane. What is this team supposed to do? I mean, seriously. Sure, they have maybe a little bit of dive. But outside of that, I mean, it's just, what are you going to do? They're missing skill shots. They're, diving under towers without a minion wave, without a man advantage, without a known man advantage. They're already behind. They're just giving away free kills. And they looked awful. And again, Spica was useless. He did nothing. And that's not necessarily on him. It's also kind of around the comp they picked. But, I'm going to get into this in a little bit. But there's no ganks, really, in any of these games. Like, yeah, I know Spica is supposed to farm up, and this is kind of more of a farming meta, whatever. Like, he still needs to have an impact on the map before 15 freaking minutes, before 10 minutes even. There's just nothing there. This game was awful. I don't know what to say. Got out of hand really fast. Huni should have. I know that I have now understood that Ignite TP is a thing for Camille, and that's fine. But when you have very easy to hit stuns where a bear man just runs up and punches you in the frickin' face, and then they're able to layer that with a Jax stun, or even by some miracle, if he's able to get out of that, Perks is there or Vulcan is there to knock him back. Having Flash would have been really good there. Like, where does Huni expect them to be ahead enough to actually use that Ignite? He's not going to kill the Jax. He picked himself into a corner and the team just got beat. It was bad. Lost was the only one who looked okay, considering the lane that he was given. And Huni was okay once they got out of lane. But the team just looked terrible. Spica and Power of Evil currently have next to zero synergy, and that has been a really big issue that I think we need to kind of focus on later. Heading into the CLG game. Yeah, we're almost 10 minutes in and almost done with Section 1. Thank God, because there's a lot more to talk about. This is barely a win. By the skin of their teeth, TSM walk out 1 and 2. Loss was really, really good here. And I know, 6 item, Xayah, whatever. But at the end of this game, he's the one in front. He is the one running at the opponent and trying to make things happen. The mechanics are there. He looks solid. He has not been the problem. Again, I will go into that a little bit later too. But in this game very specifically, and I actually don't mind this comp. The problem is when you see the Camille, you got to also have something that can fight him in the lane. Because Camille and Udyr can just split push the hell out of you, which is what CLG did. And TSM don't have anything to answer. The way that Huni is building, he cannot answer. And Speak on Olaf can't really answer either. And Power of Evil, the way he was building, which it's interesting, I don't know if this is right or not. I'd have to check. But at least according to the match history on LeagueOfLegends.com, he ended up switching to Leandri's Anguish. He went Imperial Mandate first, which, I don't know. Everybody was kind of wondering what the heck that was about. Apparently, Bjerg liked the build. I don't know. I think if the team's better coordinated, that could work better, but I'm glad he switched. They needed to. Sword Art looked a little better here. He got, caught a couple times and, had an unfortunate Zenith Blade over the wall and Dragon Pit. The team looked better here, but, they were down 8,000 gold at one point. This team allows everybody else to dictate the game. And when they try to make plays, it looks like they're trying to talk to each other through those, cup phones. You're hoping that what they're saying is getting to each other. And if they had played a better team, they lose that game 10 out of 10 times. But luckily, CLG is the worst team in the LCS. And TSM got lucky, and now they need to build on that momentum. And they need to show something new. Because the funny thing is I came into week 1 expecting them to look better than they had in the lock-in tournament. Because there were times where they looked okay. They look worse. And that heads into the second topic of how do you fix TSM? And I'll be honest with you all. There's no easy way to do this. And there's no one solution. I will say before I dive in, question of the week is going to be, what is the area that concerns you most for TSM? For me, it's comms. Because the comms are affecting everything at every level of this team. They don't seem comfortable with each other. And they don't seem to be on the same page nearly ever at any level of this game. According to PoE and Lost's interviews over the last couple days, whether it's with Travis or with the LCS, they have admitted, comms are a big issue. Lost specifically stating that Sword Art is still struggling a little bit to communicate exactly what he wants to say. And, at some point, TSM may need to tell Sword Art that, he needs to potentially take a step back a little bit. Because it seems like he's trying to do something and none of his teammates are there with him. And while we understand that he is a great player, he's a great shot caller, he's a great leader, that barrier of language potentially, from what it sounds like Lost is saying, the language barrier is just not there. And he's wanting to say a lot more than he is able to quickly state. And maybe they need to let Spica call the game. Just maybe. And when the AD carry is saying their support is having an issue communicating exactly what needs to be done, that's the person that's supposed to be closest with them. And I know they're new and they're still young and they're trying to get that figured out. And they will figure that out. I truly believe that they will figure that part out. But if that's the case, then something else needs to change for right now. And so I know that Spica is a big voice on this team, and I do think that we will learn more from TSM Legends about shot calling and how this team is looking and what is going on. But they have to fix these comms to some degree, because right now they're so far off being on the same page. They're in different books, in different countries, on different planets. That is how bad the communication is right now. And when you watch this team lose, it's almost like they're all silent. They're not saying anything. And you need that leader. You need that person who can help them get through there. And I think that Sword Art is supposed to be and will probably be that person. But for right now, the communication's not there yet. He's still learning. He's still figuring how out. This is the first time he's ever played on a team where he's speaking English as the main language, as far as I know. And last year we saw this with Suning. They had a really bad spring. They figured it out in the summer. He had come over to a new team where he was potentially speaking a different language, and he figured it out. And I believe that he will. But because the spring actually matters towards the summer, you can't lose too many games right now. And so they have to figure out what is going on with these comms. And if it does mean that Sword Art needs to take a little bit of a step back, then that's fine. And he should hopefully accept and understand that. Or the team needs to just all shut up and only listen to him. Again, I don't mean shut up in a bad way. It's just I'm frustrated, so I'm using that word. But they all need to just listen. And I think there are a lot of exercises that TSM can do to make this better. And hopefully they are doing these things, right? Even just hanging out and playing ping pong together or whatever, because I know they have a ping pong table in there and they like to play ping pong, or at least the old teams did. So maybe that's an area for them to bond, learn how each of them communicates with each other, because apparently their scrims aren't that bad, which we all know scrim bucks mean nothing. But if their scrims are not that bad, then that means the communication can be there. It's just not. And I want to look at another team, specifically as we head into the other part of this topic, the drafts. TSM and Cloud9 have actually had some pretty similar drafts to a certain degree, but there are much more clear objectives, and there are some very key picks that are different, and it's clear that the coordination between Blabber, Sven, and Vulcan is what is allowing this team to work the way that it is. It's not Perks. It's definitely not Fudge. And the rest of the team is looking better because Blabber, Sven, and Vulcan are still on such a good level of communication and understanding of the game. And so when you look at them picking Talia, which they do twice, by the way, they have ways for them to get advantages. So when you look at the rest of the team, right, they pick the Talia. They have a Jax to counter the Camille. They have an Azir. They have the Misfortune. And most importantly, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this pick here in a little bit. But Galio. And then in the next game where they pick the Talia, they have the Renekton. They have Yone, Kai'Sa, and Vulcan. There's a very clear way for this team to win. Fudge has the advantage over Niles and is able to, get off a nice stun, which allows Blabber to knock the team, knock him back, or make plays in general. Perks kind of similarly, but most importantly for this first draft, they have the Galio, who can come in and support his team at any point of the map. And it makes the Talia a little bit more dangerous, because you never know when she comes riding in on that wall if Galio's coming with her or not. And so because they're able to build around this comp, where sure they're able to take advantage because they're just a stronger team in general, but they're able to have an impact all around the map, and they have something to follow it up with. That's what makes it different. With TSM, that's not there when they are playing the Talia. They don't have the global mobility. Sure, they have the global ult of Gangplank in the one game, right? But in the other game, wait, you're waiting on package for Corki? I don't know. Sure, they didn't, the C9 draft wasn't so bad, but it was bad, and it didn't work. And it was very clear that it didn't work. And they had to go back to the drawing board. There's a lot of disengaged, just these simple picks of the Jax or the Azir allows these C9 drafts to succeed where TSMs don't. The Corki likes to sit back and do damage, but the rest of his team, they're all going in. Talia's going in. Sure, she has a little bit of poke, but she's going in mostly. Camille is going in. Kaisa is going in. Leona is going in. And they're trying to go in on a Jax, an Udyr, a Azir, and an Alistar. Good luck. Yeah, best of luck trying to get through that. And so, I want, heading into the next part of the draft, they've got to stop giving up power picks with no answer. You're going to give up OP picks. That is how it works. That's fine. But it feels like they're just they're panicking. Like with the C9 game, they're like, oh, crap. We totally forgot to ban Camille. And now we're going to have to pick it, and they're probably going to just pick Jax because they've already shown to be able to do that. So, all right, well, we're already in a bad matchup. Oh, by the way, we also gave up the Udyr first. So first pick Udyr, and instead of doing, instead of having some other answer, any other answer, they pick a Talia and they pick a Camille into a terrible matchup. And if I remember correctly, it was the Camille and the Kaisa that came first. I like the Kaisa pick there. She's strong. It's good. So you see the Udyr and you're like, okay. And then they're like, what do we do here? Oh, yeah, let's pick Camille. And hope that they forget to pick Jax, I guess. And it's like, what? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you putting yourself in a disadvantage? And then, again, he doesn't pick the Flash, and it's just like, oh my God. He dies right away. He knows they're going to gank him, and he's going to know it, and there's no ward, and Huni just dies. And it's just, this draft and the way that the team just did everything was not right in the C9 game. But overall, they just have to stop giving up these free power picks with no answers. If they see the Hecarim, pick a freaking Azir or something that's better at disengaging than an Alistar. Because that's all they had at that point. There was no disengage outside of that. Overall, the teams that TSM have played have better plans than them going into the game. There is no plan for TSM during this draft. It feels like a solo queue draft. Where it's like, oh, I'm going to pick this because I want to. Oh, yeah, I'm going to pick this pick because, well, it's strong right now, and I hope they just don't pick my main counter. Okay, well, no, well, they did. There has got to be a plan with these picks. And in their last game, they had a plan, but they didn't divert from it or make the necessary changes to allow them to totally dominate the game. They didn't have answers, and they just got lucky because they were better than the other team. So to fix the drafts, at least in my opinion, TSM have to start drafting late game scaling comps. Period. Whenever a team is just bad, or whenever a team is needing a win, and they know that they are better than their opponent, at least skill-wise, and even sometimes when they're not, they pick late game scaling comps, team fighting comps. And sure, they may run into a situation where, the team has a really strong split pusher. Well, the only really true strong split pushing, champions in the game right now are Jax and Camille. And if you ban one of them, then that's great. And TF is too, but he's still trying to actually get into these fights, and he has to. And what TSM did, which was good in the CLG game, was they got Drake control and they forced CLG to fight them. So there was a plan, at least in that regard. But that's a pretty old trick in the book. That's nothing new. And they shouldn't have just been giving up everything. They could have won 4v4s. They didn't need all 5 there. And they eventually figured that out when it was down to no towers left and just, or some tower. But, and just the Azir and PoE just playing goalie because Camille couldn't match him. And I'll be honest, Power of Evil outplayed the absolute crap out of Finn in almost every one of those fights. Because if any of those fights go wrong for TSM in that 1v1, then they lose. They just straight up lose the game. So good on PoE for that, by the way. I should have given him a little more credit there. But either way, like they this is the way that they have to go. This is the way. Late game scaling comes. Period. Pick an Aphelios once in a while. Like, I know he's not like super duper strong. I know he's not one of the main picks. But like, they should set themselves up because Lost is a good Aphelios. They should give him that. They should be picking less complicated comps because that's what's losing them the games right now. They can't, like, even if there's something maybe that I'm missing, because I'm not a draft expert, okay? I'm not. I'm a gold League of Legends player. But even I can tell you that these drafts aren't working for this team right now. And when you're having such major comm issues, just picking really easy to execute team fight comps is going to win these games for them because they're just, frankly, better than half the league at almost every position. Or at least they should be. Now, we are almost 30 minutes in. And I wanted to get through everything else quickly for this conversation. I've said for 2 weeks now, why is Galio not getting picked? In the game that they beat C9, Galio played a major role. Sword Art can have an impact at every area of the game without necessarily leaving his lane. And when he does roam mid with a Galio, he can help Huni. He can also jump down and help Lost. He can help Spica. He can help Power of Evil. This is such a good pick for this team. And yet they're just ignoring it, and I don't understand it. And I guess I will say this. I do know, and I've done my research, Power of Evil and Sword Art have not necessarily found a lot of success with Galio in the past. But in a meta right now, where they need to have better team fights, and they need to have that thing that bails them out, Galio would be great. Because look back, right? When TSM would pick Zilean, sure, it was because, Bjergsen was a god on Zilean. We get it. But the most important part about the way that he played Zilean was the way that he used his revives, used his ultimates. It would be to save a teammate from making a bad mistake. I think you probably see where I'm going here with this. If Sword Art is the best player on this team, which there are many who argue he should be, especially the way that he's getting paid, then it's okay for him to sacrifice a little bit to, especially right now, to cover up the team's mistakes. And Galio does that. Galio instantly gives you a shield, instantly gives you a knockup, instantly gives you a man advantage, or at least brings it back to make it even, or just helps zone. There's so many ways that Galio can help this team. And yet they're not picking him early. They're waiting to give counter pick. I don't care. Give one of the solo laners a counter pick. Give Spica a counter pick. You can't do it all. I understand that. But at some point in the first round of drafts, if these teams aren't going to ban Galio, pick him until they do ban him. And then you can use these picks that they're using it on to bring it out, because teams are banning Galio from them. They're banning him in the second round. But if TSM are going to do anything better with their counter picks, then just pick him. Please. God, just pick him. I cannot understand. He would do so much for this team. And it's not like there's, a lot of things, in the bot lane that are gonna like make his life all that miserable right now. Especially right now. We have a full weekend where Galio will probably be really useful. Now, I don't know about the changes coming into the later patches in terms of, kind of giving these buffs to supports, specifically mage supports. But Galio's just, God, he just would fit so well with what this team wants to do and what they need to do to win. And I'm just gonna preach it until I can't preach it no more. Screw Leona, screw Alistar. Yes, those are good picks for other teams, but for right now, it's not for TSM. They have won with a Galio and a Maokai. Those are two strong, really strong team fighting supports, tanky supports. Alistar and Leona specifically focus on one champion normally. They can lock down that one champion. But if your team is not winning, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. Because if you lock down one person, but the other three are so fed, it doesn't, like, that they're just going to roll through your team, how does that help you? So, be gone with those picks. Picks things that are going to have playmaking abilities in team fights. And the same can be said, by the way, about the way that they're picking for Huni, too. Stick him on Ornn and stick him on Gragas. Who cares? Because at least he's going to have a team fight impact. And if you have a Galio paired with an Ornn, paired with a Gragas, the amount of team fighting this team is going to have is just unbelievable. And then you can allow Spica, Power of Evil, and Lost to do what they do best, which is get kills. Like, Huni doesn't need to be the person getting kills. A Sword doesn't need to be the person that is trying to lock down the one individual, because it's not working. You got to keep your carries alive. When Power of Evil's going 1-7 on a Corki, that's because there's nothing TSM can do to protect him. When Lost is getting dove by a Camille, there's nothing that they can do with an Alistar and a Leona that's going to stop that. So, I mean, if you can't tell, I'm really frustrated, because if I'm seeing these things, if I know that we're losing the game by the second pick that TSM have, that's bad. I mean, I sat there in that C9 game, and I go, all right, well, they gave up Udyr. What's their answer? They picked Kai'Sa and Talia and Camille. And then they ended up picking the Leona. And then they ended up picking the Corki. And I just straight up said there is next to no chance that they win this game. And lo and behold, they lost by nearly 20,000 gold. 20,000 gold. And they're supposed to be like trying to, play for, championships. And I get that they need time. I fully understand that. I am the one who all offseason preached patience with this team. And I'm willing to give them patience. But we're technically in the middle of the spring split right now. And this team is a total of 4-8. 4-8. The worst season that they've had in recent memory is 9-9. That means that they would have to go 5-1. 5-1 just to match that alone. And I know they have more games than they do normally. We still have 15 games left. So technically, that is plenty of time for them to turn it around from a 1-2 start. Again, 1-2 start. But this team just doesn't look there. All right, continuing on in the how to fix TSM topic. Where is Spica? Why are they not giving him anything to do anything on? He just doesn't look comfortable on Taliyah. Stop picking it. At least with the Olaf, he looked comfortable, but he still didn't do much. He's got to start ganking his lanes. Sacrifice some CS, bro. And I know they're not helping you out much in terms of giving you places to have advantages, but it just feels like he doesn't know where to go or what to do, which is not true, I'm sure. But that's just what it feels like and it looks like. I'm watching these games and I'm looking and I'm watching. I'm like, where's Spica? Where's he at? Oh, Hooney's getting attacked. Where's Spica? Now he's clearing Krugs. Okay. Bot lane's diving. Where's Spica? Oh, he's in Tribush. He's not there yet. Oh, Power of Evil's dying. Where's Spica? Oh, he's on the other side of the map. Clearing Gromp. He's got to be there more. And I know that that's really maybe not fair to put on him. But there's nothing there right now for him. And, I don't know what else to do for him at this point. Because, they give him the Olaf, and he still just wasn't really anywhere. He's not giving his team an advantage. Like, the thing you do in the jungle is you give yourself an extra man by ganking. And it's one of the most simple and probably least talked about things. And everybody's been like, well, Spica's been consistent. Spica's been consistent. What's he been consistent at, guys? I mean, seriously, what? I mean, the guy has less damage than almost everybody else on his team on these Taliyah picks. I mean, in their win against CLG, Lost had almost 40k damage. Power of Evil had 25. And Spica was 3-1-4 with 14k damage. He had a 50% kill participation as the jungler. 50%. They had 14 kills. Lost had 13. Was involved in 13. Power of Evil was also involved in just 7. Lulu involved in 13. Like, when you look at this team statistically, sure, Spica doesn't look that bad, but when you're watching the games, he's just not there. There's nothing that he is doing that is helping this team right now. And again, part of it is the comp. Part of it is the fact that every lane that is losing, and when you're a jungler as a, jungler-ish main, I main jungle most of the time, but right now I'm not. The champions are not my type of champions. But when he is unable to participate, this team loses games, and they will continue to lose when he doesn't have the ability to play objectives. And on the Taliyah pick, he just wasn't able to play the objectives well. And again, when you have losing lanes, it feels bad. It's not good. As a jungler, there's not much that you can do. But he's got to start to find something to do, because right now his team is desperately in need of a lift. And it feels wrong to put it on the shoulders of a player who's realistically only played one full split and in 6 games at Worlds. But that's kind of what we need right now. We need Spica. And we need him to have an impact on the game. I am sure that TSM Legends is going to reveal a lot more to us. I think we're going to be able to listen at least a little bit to some of their comms and some of their decisions and what is going on in their minds right now. And hopefully it will answer a lot of these questions, or it will at least start to answer some of them. But maybe it's time to just adjust our expectations for right now, especially for the spring. And again, I preach patience with this team, but you got to remember these. I've said it before. I'm just repeat it now. These games do count towards the summer, and I know that everybody makes the summer. I understand, 8 out of 10 teams, but TSM aren't even playing like, they're barely playing like the 8th best team in my opinion. In my power rankings, I have them 8th right now. They're not going to win a lot of games this spring if they keep playing the way that they are playing. Something has to change. They need to win games, period. I don't care if they finish 500 or just below it and they make the playoffs. But in my opinion, the expectation for me is they got to at least get that 6th seed because they have to be at least better than 4 teams in this league. They have to be. Because if they're not better than 4 teams in this league, then there's a much more serious issue with this team. And that comes to my last point in the fixing TSM team. Volume warning. Volume warning. Stop blaming Hooney and Lost, TSM fans. Stop it. Just stop. I understand that they are the easiest ones to pick on because, the names aren't as well known or because Hooney has had bad stuff in the past. They are not the problems. They are so far from being the main issues for this team that it's not even worth discussing anymore. You got to drop it. You have to stop. I'm so sick of it already. Team's not playing well. Time to bring in Hanser. Team's not playing well. Time to bring in Cody's son. Listen, I like both those players. I talked to Cody's son on this. I do want to potentially see him at some point just because I like the guy. But you know what? This team has so many other issues that trying to say that replacing Hooney or replacing Lost is going to fix them is beyond stupid. I cannot explain it to you. Because guess what? Lost has played pretty well. Sure, he had one bad game. He really did. If you want to even consider that a bad game in the FlyQuest game, there was nothing he could do. That was not his fault. As an AD carry, there is literally nothing he could have done differently. Nothing. He was already positioning himself so far out of the fight that didn't matter. And the Camille would just jump right in and just kill him. There's nothing he can do in that game. And in the C9 game, he actually was probably the best player on the team. And in the CLG game, he potentially won the game for the team. So let's be done with blaming Lost. That's for sure. The kid looks pretty good, especially considering he and his support are apparently just on totally different, stratospheres right now. And then for Hooney, yes, I see the same mistakes that you do. I do. But you know what? He's trying to do something. He is trying to get himself an advantage because none of his team is doing it. If you ask me, it's the 3 players that we expect that we aren't talking about that are at fault. More so than the 2 that everybody keeps blaming. So let's drop that. Let's get rid of that mindset of just like, hey, somebody's not performing. Let's put in the 2 people that were brought in to be the backups. I get the appeal. But I'm telling you right now, I so highly doubt that replacing Hanser or Hooney and Lost with Hanser and Cody's son is going to change the way this team is playing. Because they are doing so many other things wrong. There's no way that you're going to stop that. I'm going to bring up my piece that I had in my takeaways. Benching Hooney and Lost will not fix this team's draft issues. Benching Hooney and Lost will not fix the comms issues. It will probably make it worse because, you're adding 2 new voices. Benching Hooney and Lost will not make Spica get more involved in the early game or help Power of Evil dominate opponents that he really should be or help Sword Art stop making bad plays and start making the plays that he is known for. The point is that every single player and coach on this team are at fault for how this team is currently playing. Not just Hooney or Lost. And in fact, if it wasn't for Hooney and Lost, 2 of TSM's 4 wins so far this year would probably have been losses. Again, CLG win, probably on Lost. Because of him. And without the Ornn and the Gragas plays during the lock-in tournament, the big plays that he made, sure, maybe Cody's son or Hooney could or Hunter could have made these plays, but they aren't there. They didn't make those plays. So they have accounted for at least 2 of TSM's 4 wins. Can you say that about Spica yet? Can you say that about Power of Evil? Can you say that about Sword Art? Sure, maybe Spica because of the fact that he is able to steal Barons and Dragons like an absolute god. But guess what? And still in almost every game in the lock-in tournament, Spica did not have an impact in the early game. Power of Evil has just, we expected him and Bjergsen to just be this perfect marriage. He's going to get better. This is the worst I've seen him in years. And Sword Art is, again, he's trying to make some plays that I don't even understand. So no, these games are not on Hooney. They are not on Lost. And people need to stop because you're actually hurting the team by consistently trying to push this narrative of replacing them going to make this team better. It's not. So stop it. Because again, you're hurting the mental of these players. They can see what you're saying. And sure, they are supposed to have a wall that allows them to ignore it. But they're only human, guys. Now, if the team starts playing better and Power of Evil and Spica and Sword Art, they are just on one. And truly, we figure out that Hooney and Lost are the pieces that are holding the team back. They're the ones that are causing the comms issues, or they're the ones that are making these terrible draft decisions. Then sure, yes, we can absolutely bring in people who are more well-known in terms of, or at least being more consistent. I will agree with that. But right now, that is not the situation. Oof. That was a lot. Wow. Overall, the point is, TSM have a lot of issues to fix. And while I think it starts with comms, there's nothing that they can do, in my opinion, right now that is going to make them instantly better. So we're going to have to suffer a little bit, probably a little bit more. I'm sure this is going to be potentially another long weekend. But as long as they show promise each weekend, then that's fine. As long as they pull out a couple wins here and there, that's fine. I don't expect them to win the spring split finals. And none of you should either at this point. Because, frankly, I that is so far off, and there's just such an unlikelihood of that happening that we need to learn to support this team even when they're not at their best yet. The one thing about being a really good fan is being a fan when the team's bad and when the team is good. It's not just the good. And I'm not saying that people aren't. I'm sure that a lot of people still support, the rest of these players. It's just when you watch a team, they're going to have ups and downs. TSM lost 2 of their most iconic players of all time. They are still recovering from that. There's no continuity on this team coming in. Hopefully that will change soon. Let's head into topic 3, the last topic of the day. We got games to look forward to this weekend. And yes, I did say we are looking forward to them because you know what? We still get to watch League of Legends in a time when the world is still dealing with an awful pandemic. They start off the weekend against Golden Guardians. Niles. Good kid. I really like him personally. Right now, he is too aggressive, and he is dying a lot. He's making good calls for his team, and he is mechanically gifted. And I know that he is getting camped like so unbelievably much. But until Golden Guardians can show that they can, recover from that, TSM need to just attack Niles. And they need to draft a better team fighting team. I don't care what it looks like. As long as their team fight is stronger than Golden Guardians, that is fine with me. Because I'll tell you something, Golden Guardians are better than TSM at exactly 0 positions, in my opinion. And I do mean 0. There's not even one that you can be like, oh, maybe. Huni's better than Niles. Spica's better than Iconic. Power of Evil is better than a Blaze Olive. Lost is better than Stixay. And Sword Art is better than Newbie. So as long as they have at least an even or better draft, this team should win. They should. Take Drake control. Force the team to fight you. Beat their butts in every team fight. And it will hopefully be the easiest win TSM have this year. So far this year. But at this point, who knows? I thought that they could do the similar thing against FlyQuest. FlyQuest brought out, some, unstoppable horsey comp, and TSM somehow just didn't notice it or maybe didn't care, and they still lost that game. And I expected it with the CLG game, and they barely pulled that one out. So, who knows? But I am predicting a win against Golden Guardians on Friday. Then on Saturday, they get TL. TL are vulnerable. We saw it in the Immortals game. They have some issues, but they probably won't lose unless TSM really just play out of their minds and win at every level in the draft and, somehow in the lanes. The one biggest chink in the armor that I see with this TL game is Tactical and Core JJ, which sounds weird because, yes, they are probably, obviously they're top 3 bot lane, potentially the best one. We'll see. But they tend to overextend a lot. They like to make plays. They love those 2v2 kills. And I actually think that TSM should punish that. Expect it, right? You know what they're going to do. TSM is such a wild card at this point in terms of the way that they're playing. There's not a whole lot that teams can be like, well, if we focus on this one thing. Right? They're so bad in so many areas right now that it's like the teams are probably going to be like, oh, what do we focus on most? But for TSM, let them push them in. Let them have a little bit of a losing lane where they have to play under tower, but then punish them for it. Have PoE get out and about. Even if he's going to lose some turret plates, have Spica focus on the bot lane. Because if they can do that, they can take Drake control. They can get a couple kills maybe. They can just make their lives miserable. Have TP plays. One of the other things I didn't talk about with TSM is, PoE and Huni are having to use their TP so defensively because they're just getting beat in lane. So they got to try to save their waves and save their towers with their TP plays. I want them to have the opportunity to save those TPs. Let Sword Art get a deep ward and then double TP down into the bot lane. Just play through it. If Lost seems like when he has confidence and when the team is allowing him to play aggressively, he could be a carry. Like, we're not talking about that at all until now. Like, hopefully they will recognize this. And sure, Tactical and Core JJ are very, 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 very good. But they can definitely take advantage of the fact that they're very aggressive and probably over so. And so if TSM can make a couple smart plays in the bot lane, punishing them for their overextension, or at least for tacticals, that could be good. That could be really good. Again, this is likely going to be a loss, but knowing TSM, they're going to end up losing to the other two teams and then beat TL by some miracle. I don't know why, but I could totally see that happening. Or they're just going to go 0-3, and then we're all going to sit here and be like, holy mother of God, I just want to put my head through a wall. Anywho, Immortals, another team that TSM should beat. But I do think they might actually be a really good test for TSM in terms of figuring out where they actually are. Because at least with Golden Guardians and CLG, they should be a lot better than them. With FlyQuest, I think that was a good test too, but clearly game 1 jitters or something played into it. Now they're into game 6. And Immortals, they're not going to be a great team, but they're okay. And for TSM, this is a game that they need to win, right? They need to show that they are at least a top 6 team. Like, for me, if they can beat Immortals and Golden Guardians, then they are at least a top 6 team, and we can focus on fixing things that will allow them to beat the top tier teams. But until they can beat these level of teams, there's no reason for us to think that C9, TL, 100 Thieves, and even EG are within their realm of beating. So, they can't let Revenge control the game. He makes plays. He likes to be aggressive in lane. Again, if I'm TSM, I punish teams that are overly aggressive. And top lane's a good spot for it. Huni, if he can be less aggressive and wait for his teammates, which we know he can do in the past, could be a good game for him. And then Spica specifically needs to get the advantage so that he can disrupt Xerxes and keep the rest of IMT on their heels, because the games that they've won, Xerxes was kind of roaming around the map, doing good things. And then, in the game against C9, right, they killed Xerxes early and often. They, disrupted his patterns. And IMT were just so far back, they couldn't do anything. If TSM can end week 2 at 3-3, then I think we can all collectively take a nice breath of fresh air. Because 3-3 at least gives us a moment to see, okay, things are going to be okay. It's not as bad as we thought. I will tell you, if they go 1-5, if they finish this weekend 1-5, then there's alarms that need to be raised for the team as a whole. Again, if they need to make changes at that point, I might support it. I just might, because again, that would put them at 3-11 for the year. And in my opinion, that's unacceptable for a team that has spent as much money. And I'm sure Reggie will be coming down. If they go 0-3 this weekend, Reggie will probably be there every step of the way for the rest of this year. Because his team is just too good. They've spent too much money. There's no reason that they should be 3-11 through 14 games in 2021. Zero reason. All right, this was asked for by Brooks specifically. TSM Academy updates. TSM Academy this last weekend went 1-1, beating CLG Academy pretty handily. Apparently, that was another battle of the bottom teams. TSM CLG, I mean, it's a new rivalry of the toilet bowl. But yeah, they were able to pull out a dub, just like TSM, except they were able to do it a lot easier. Hanser and Cody Sun so far have looked pretty much ready to go if the team decides to bring them up. Hanser specifically looked a lot more dominant. Cody Sun is inhibited by Fizzy, which, sorry if you're a fan of his or not even, he just doesn't look very good. He looks raw. I will say that. He looks raw. There's potential there. Mechanics are there to a certain degree, but he makes a lot of silly mistakes from the games that I have watched. And so I think that holds Cody Sun back from being able to do what he does. The team is overall 2-4. They do not look great. And it's funny, I was looking at these academy standings, and I noticed that the top teams were still TL and C9. And EG and 100 Thieves are up there too, and FlyQuest. And it's like, how interesting. The teams that are doing well in the LCS are also doing well at academy level. I am starting to think that the the new TSM staff is really not great right now. I don't know what to say, because it's like Peter has been great in the past. So, the Academy squad struggling is strange. We know Bjergsen, and we hope Bjergsen can be better, but he hasn't been so far. And it just feels like almost the entire organization for TSM, when you look at the Academy, when you look at the whole main team as well, they just aren't performing. They're just not doing very well. So I'm hopeful that, if both teams can start turning it around, that means that the coaching staff is starting to figure it out. The players are starting to figure it out. And again, I really think that, as this Academy team goes, as TSM goes, the main team too. Because I believe that's one of their main scrim partners. I feel like I remember Parth or somebody saying that, the TSM and the Academy teams were going to be pretty intermingled. A lot of mixing, a lot of back and forth. And yeah, hopefully they can figure it all out. Whew, this was quite the show. I am honestly, I'm kind of exhausted from it. So much emotion to get out. I think I was able to hold it in to a certain degree. I didn't swear as far as I can remember. I wanted to. I wanted to say a lot of swearing, but I didn't. Taking a deep breath, I think, is just going to really help us. And seriously, getting that win over CLG was probably such a relief for this team. Because it just shows that they can win. And sometimes just getting that first win can really help teams a lot. So I'm hopeful for that. But yeah, it's time to end this show. If you like it, please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss another episode. You don't get to miss me, rambling on about this team. Also, I want to continue to make, Talking TSM the number one podcast on all platforms. So if you feel so inclined, please leave a review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcast. I cannot describe how much that would mean to me. Please share this with your friends if they're TSM fans, or even if they're just LCS fans and they want to listen to a currently frustrated TSM fan. You can find this show on our Twitter accounts at TGH Robert Haynes for me, or at the Game House's Twitter account at TGH Esports. Please use the hashtag TalkingTSM when tweeting at us or sharing. And lastly, head to thegamehouse.com, head to our TSM page under the Esports and League of Legends tabs to see all of our TSM content that is mainly written by myself. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a heck of a ride so far, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to go over in the weeks coming, but thanks for listening. The show comes out every Thursday and is exclusively for your TSM earholes. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See you next week.